Hello, Girl Scouts. Thanks for joining me today as we get to paint. I'm going to go through the slides rather quickly, but you can always pause the show on a certain slide as you create your painting. First thing, gather those supplies. I love painting. I happen to have a lot of stuff in my house. Paint smocks are always important. I grabbed 3 paintbrushes because I wasn't sure which size I would want. I like to use paper plates as my palette. I use another plate as a fan to help dry my painting as I go. I did go ahead and make a trefoil template ahead of time. I don't trust my freehand skills. I chose to use the outline of the trefoil as it was easier and less detailed than the faces, but do whichever is easiest for you. Ooh, don't forget to protect your table. I have an old Formica table. I'd rather not get paint all over it. I chose to use an old cardboard pattern cutting board. Anything can work though. Newspapers, you can cut up a cardboard box and lay it out flat, whatever you have at your house. Okay, remember to not use a lot of paint. It's easier to add more paint to your plate than to try and put it back in the bottle. I went with 2 darkish colors and 2 lighter colors for my background. I did brown, bronze, peach, and white. Ooh, now it's time to start painting. Dip your paintbrush in the water and then paint your canvas with water. If it's super drippy wet, you can pat it dry with your paper towel. Painting water on your canvas first helps to thin out the brown paint that you put on next. Make it streaky. You don't want solid dark brown. It's okay if some of your canvas is still showing. You're going to cover it up with those next steps. Okay, after you're done with that first step, we're going to let it dry for a few minutes. And then this is where we start our cool background. I dipped my paintbrush in 3 colors. First, I dipped a corner in the paint, then I dipped the other corner, and then the tip into a third color. This adds streaks of all of the colors that we want on our canvas. Here's another example. This time I dipped the tip in first, and then one of the corners and the second corner into a third color. Just keep painting your background. This is your painting. You make it the way you want. And don't forget about painting the sides so they don't stay bright white. Okay, how is yours starting to look? Are you happy with it? If you think it's too dark, add some more of the light colors, or if it's too light, you can add some dark colors. Yours doesn't have to look exactly like mine. In fact, it shouldn't. We're all doing this a little bit differently. Okay, after you give it a chance to dry, it's time to add our lines. That's going to make it look like boards. I used black paint for my lines and thought they were way too dark. So I went over them with the brown and tried to soften up those colors. Mixing the black and brown together first might be a good idea. And as you can see, my lines aren't straight, really not even close. That's okay. Ooh, now it's time for that trefoil template. Make sure to leave room for our letters. I'm going to outline the trefoil with the green paint I'm using, a little on the template and a little on the painting. Yay, look at how great it looks. I'm going to keep my template just in case I want to do something with it later on. Okay, time to fill it in. I used a green glitter paint because glitter just makes everything better and happy. As it dried, I added a few more layers of the green paint. The glitter paint I used wasn't as dark as I wanted it to be. It was actually kind of thin. Right here is a picture of my workspace. Remember, the paint does go a long way. You don't need to be using a lot. It looks like there's a lot of green paint on my plate there. It was super thin and it spread out. That's another reason I did multiple layers on my trefoil. Now it's time to start our letters. I forgot to look for a ruler before I started, so I grabbed a notepad to draw my letters first. And that black paint that I used went ahead and covered up my pencil lines. I did think my L was a little too skinny, so I just whitened it and made it a little thicker. Using the pad of paper as my straight edge, I drew my V. I recommend drawing that E right now too. And then just go ahead and paint one letter at a time. It's really coming together. I'm liking it a lot. My letters aren't perfect, but I really love how it turned out. What do you think of your painting? Go ahead and share a picture of you and your painting. I would love to see how they all turned out. Thanks for joining me.